Is it possible to stay positive no matter what? That's what we're getting into today at Live on Purpose TV. I'm Dr. Paul. So part of my main job as a psychologist is to illuminate the obvious, which basically means that I get to call to your attention things that are obvious but not really noticed. It's obvious but unnoticed. Think about that for a minute. Like your shirt, for example. Can you feel your shirt? Is it obvious? That's what I'm talking about. It's obvious, but you don't notice it until it's called to your attention. Or the fact that we're speaking English. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's obvious now. That's how the processes in our mind are. And as you understand and tune into the processes that are going on in your mind, it actually puts you in a higher position of choice and control. So one of the questions that I get all the time, how do I stay positive? Especially when things are hard or difficult. There are two processes going on in your mind that as you understand those two processes, it will clear this right up. So let's start with a common phrase. It is what it is. Is that annoying to you? It is to me sometimes. I guess it depends on who's saying it and why. All it means is the way things are. Without changing anything. It's where you are, it's what you have, it's who you're with. It's the way things are without altering a thing. It is what it is. So let's create a little model that will help us wrap our head around this. On this line, I've put the words what it is. And that's what it represents. It's where you are, what you have, who you're with. It is what it is. This will make more sense if I put a little story around it. And this happened just a few months ago. I was visiting the National Speakers Association in Orlando, Florida, and I had an opportunity to listen to one of my heroes, Jeannie Robertson. Jeannie is so amazing, and she does this G-rated comedy that'll just have you laughing your guts out. Anyway, she's giving a little presentation about how to use humor as a professional speaker. And I'm sitting right here. I am on the front row. There's a couple of hundred people in the room. I'm on the front row. Now I got to tell you something about Jeannie, because when you're in her presentation, if you pull out your smartphone and look at it and she sees you, she's going to have a conversation with you. You become part of the content. If you get up to leave, she's going to talk to you on your way out. This is just how she is. She interacts with her audience. She makes it fun. So I'm sitting there. She's about to wrap up, and I get a text. Now, I'm not going to pull out my phone. I know the rules. But I get a little notification on my Fitbit. And you know how it's a truncated version? Well, here's what it said. This is from my sister. She said, I wanted you to know that Talon had an accident last night. And my mind is immediately intrigued with this message. He slipped and fell off a 30-foot ... And it's truncated. That's all I got. So you can imagine how that felt to see that portion of the message. I'm wondering, what's the rest of the story? Is he okay? What's going to happen? Just to introduce you to my niece, Katrina, and her husband, Talon, and their little baby Sage. They're such a cute little family. This picture was taken maybe 2 weeks before the accident. And my mind is just consumed with, oh my gosh, what has happened here to this family that I love? My father lost his dad to an accident when he was only 5 years old. I have a dear friend who crashed his plane into a lake near my office here about 10 years ago. He left his wife and kids without a husband and father. And so this is where my mind is going with it. Well, Jeannie's just wrapping up her presentation. She gets to the end of her presentation. I get up, slip out, and I pull up the full text on my cell phone. And here's what it said. A 30-foot waterfall and broke both his ankles and seriously injured his knee. And they could use some extra prayers. And I am feeling relieved. Didn't you? A little bit? When I shared the rest of the text with you? Why did I feel relieved? My nephew has 2 broken ankles and I'm feeling good about this. let's take a look at what the mind is doing so that we can understand the processes. When we go back to the model, it is what it is. One of the things our mind has to do, and we can't turn this off, any more than we can turn off gravity. You ever get up in the morning and think, oh, what if gravity's on today? No, because you understand this principle and it's always on. Well, this one is too. It's called evaluation. And evaluation is where we take what it is, no matter what it is, and we judge it. We evaluate it. We declare whether it's good or bad or lucky or unlucky or fortunate or unfortunate. The word evaluation itself implies comparison with some standard. So how are we going to know? What it is 2 broken ankles. Okay, 2 compound fractures of the ankle. This is pretty serious, right? Well, is this good or bad? Depends on what we compare it to. Here's another evaluation question. Am I a tall man? You might not know. I'm sitting here in front of the camera, and if you don't know me, you might not know. Would it help if I showed you a picture of me? There's me with my friend Mark Eaton, who is a phenomenal speaker and trainer and used to play center for the Utah Jazz. Now, I am 6'2". And compared to most people, that makes me pretty tall, right? But compared to Mark Eaton, who is 7'4", I'm not very tall. Am I a tall man? Notice that your answer to that depends on who or what you compare me to. So it's not an absolute thing. Well, this is what our mind is doing all of the time. So we go back to what it is, 2 broken ankles. Can you imagine anything better than that? Oh, you can. Yeah, so can I. Like 0 broken ankles would be better, right? No accident occurs. That's not what happened, but we can imagine it. And when we take what it is, 2 broken ankles, and we compare it to our imagination of something better than that, like no accident ever occurs, how do we feel about 2 broken ankles? It's awful, terrible. And I need to go on record as a professional psychologist. You are never wrong about how you feel. You are never wrong about how you feel. How you feel is 100% consistent with the way your mind is doing this process. But notice that we feel badly about it when we compare it to something better. Okay, now you're probably getting ahead of me. Can you imagine anything worse than 2 broken ankles? Yeah, you can. And I set you up for this because I told you about my dad. And I told you about my friend who crashed his plane. You can imagine that Talon could have easily died in that accident. And he could have. Now, compared to our imagination of something worse, how do we feel about the 2 broken ankles? Woohoo! Awesome! What's wrong with you people? You feel good about my nephew having 2 broken ankles? Yes, you do, compared to something worse. So just notice that your mind is doing that. Now, when we look at the whole evaluation model together, what it is the only thing that's real. Everything better, everything worse is all imaginary. That doesn't exist, but we can imagine it. And when we compare what we've got to something better than what we've got, we feel worse. You tracking this? You're not wrong about how you feel. It's consistent with the way you're evaluating what it is. When we compare what we've got to something worse, we feel better. And the only thing that's real is what it is. I'm not asking you to change this. I simply want you to see it. Because in seeing it, you are in a position now of choice. And you may get to steer this a little more than you thought you could. No, we're not done yet. Because there's some things that we can do to actually steer it. Here's the first thing that I would suggest. I'm calling it the gratitude triple play. It's a brain hack, really. It's a way to get yourself into that positive evaluation mode. Here's what it is. For the next 5 days, think of 3 things. Just make a list. You can do this on your smartphone or your tablet or just on a piece of paper. Do it old school. Write down 3 things a day for which you are sincerely grateful. And don't pretend you've got to be grateful for it to put it on your list. Of those three, one is a freebie. Okay, what I mean is it's easy to be grateful for things that are already awesome, like puppies and rainbows and indoor plumbing and hot water. You can use those if you want. That's your freebie. The other two every day need to be about something that is challenging, difficult, painful. Okay, something that's kicking your butt a little bit. And I don't mean that you have to be grateful for that challenge. What I mean is look inside of it. Peel it back. See if you can get inside of that thing that is challenging to you and find something in there for which you truly are grateful. Put that on your list. Okay? That's hard. That's challenging. But that changes the game. And what it's doing is giving your mind a whole different set of marching orders for what direction you're going to steer the evaluation. Gratitude triple play. Do that for 5 days in a row. Let's just see what happens. Okay, now we're going to move on to the other process because this is where it gets so exciting and powerful. In addition to evaluation, our mind is constantly doing a process that I call creation. All right? Not creation of what is. I'm talking about creation of what is to be. And that doesn't exist yet. We haven't created it yet. So we have to imagine what we're going to create. We're going to use that powerful imagination now for a different task. Now, notice how quickly you can imagine both directions. What if I gave you an assignment to go out there, just take a half hour. That's all you get. We'll time you. Go out there and somehow make your life worse. Now, could you do that? Yeah. Would you? On purpose, I mean? No. You would never do that. Because inherently as human beings, we want something better, not worse, right? But look how quickly your mind can come up with half a dozen ways to pull that off. And it wouldn't take a half hour, would it? When we get to creation mode, we switch the direction of our imagination so that we can imagine creating something better than what we have. Look at the feelings for a minute. When we imagine, because we don't know, think about it. How you doing next week? You don't know. Now, you've got something to do with it. Please remember that. But you don't know. So it's all in your imagination. And when you imagine that what's coming for you is worse than what you've already got, how do you feel? This, my friends, is anxiety. That's 23 years of clinical experience in a nutshell. When we imagine that what's coming is worse than what we've already got, we feel anxiety, fear, nervousness, apprehension. When we imagine that what's coming is better than what we've already got, how do we feel? This is excitement, hope, anticipation, eagerness. It's a whole different feeling. And that sets us up for the ability to actually create it. Just like in evaluation, it goes both ways. What it is the only thing that's real. Okay? Everything better, everything worse is all imaginary. And we get to pick one of those to focus on as we launch into the creation aspect of what we can now accomplish. Here's a little brain hack for you. Any Star Wars fans out there? I love Star Wars. It was my favorite movie as a kid. And it's since expanded quite a bit. This droid is called BB-8. You get to have one of the... No, you don't get a droid. But we're going to use his name to remind us of this particular brain hack. How certain are you that 8 o'clock is coming? Pretty darn. Yeah, look at the clock. It's on its way. How sure are you that you're going to be around for 8 o'clock? Almost as sure? Yeah, well, come on. You've got a 100% track record so far. You've made it to every 8 o'clock your whole life, and there's 2 every day for those of you who don't get up early. 8 o'clock's coming. You're probably going to be around for 8 o'clock. There's only 2 options. I used to think there were 3. I've narrowed it down to 2. Because that third option, that things might be exactly the same at 8 o'clock as they are right now, I don't think that's possible. At the very least, you're going to be a few hours older. You might be more hungry, more tired. I don't know. Depends on what you did just before 8. So there's only 2 options left. By your own evaluation, which you can't turn off, things have to be either better or worse at 8 o'clock. Either a little or a lot. We already know that you could make things worse. Please don't do this, okay? What if you were to commit to better by 8? BB8, okay? Better by 8. Could you do that? Yeah. How does that feel? See, when we get focused on that positive creation, it changes everything. Let's take a look at the entire model together. This is what I call the positivity vector. And you've heard forever that happiness is a choice. This shows you how and why that is very literally and psychologically true. It is a choice. No matter what, we can get ourselves into a positive evaluation. The quickest way I know to do that is through gratitude. And from there, we turn on the power to move into creation mode and create something that's even better than what we already have. And I'll get behind your positive upgrade all day long as we work together to stay positive no matter what. That's it, folks. How to stay positive no matter what. This is the model that we'll be referring back to in many future episodes of Live on Purpose TV. I'm Dr. Paul.